A few videos back, I said something quite silly, and as per usual, when I say something really dumb, it gets pointed out in the comments of how good it's going to be and why I should be doing it. And you know what? Today I'm going to be delivering on the dumb comment that I made. I said a few episodes ago that I could not build one ship in one episode, and I've thought about it. And I think I can. I've got to make some changes, but I think I can very well build an entire ship in a single episode. In order for this to work, we have to get a few things right. The first one is I needed to plan it out, and I can tell you now, hey, just before I tell you now, this guy's still around. That's fantastic. I was quite concerned about him. Still around here, still got his trades. Beautiful. So the first thing is we need to have planned out perfectly, and I think I have planned out a ship that I think we can be very proud of. So trust me, we're going to be very happy at the end of this episode. The other one is I need to get all the resources ready for us to be able to build the ship so we can actually finish it. So that is why we are here right now. And also, while we are here right now, I need to point something out because this was a very contested thing in the last episode. The sail on our ship, which is actually the second ship which we didn't have sails on. This one here, I don't know what I think about this because it works very well for this particular style that we've got going on. It's a little bit more meshy. I want to try this out, but either way, that's for two things. First of all, our ship that we built, and keep that in mind for later on when we get to the actual sails of our big ship. And already I'm mixing up ships and boats. The reason that we are all the way on this side of the world is because this is where my whole world's wool producing facilities are located. Very high tech, and they definitely will be doing the trick. So right now, I've got a bunch of sheep to shear, and that should conclude all the resources, if I'm correct, for our entire ship build for today. Quite appropriately, while we are on our way back, here is our first ship we built in the world. I'm very, very pleased with the way this one turned out. If you guys haven't seen this, of course, this was done, I'm guessing 20 to 30 episodes ago, but we are not doing something quite this size, because this one, I certainly would never be able to finish in one episode. Like, that's a lot. Like, that was many, many hours, and I could not begin to tell you just how long things like that take. So for today, let's go ahead and move on past this lighthouse to find our other lighthouse, sleep a little bit, and in fact, I'd be smart to sleep on this side, and then we can get started. Now, of course, we should go ahead and get started with the ship, and you can see where I've started laying out a little bit of where it's going to go, but there's a few things to think about with this area. First of all is, how darn good looking is it getting right now? I'm just so excited to see how this turns out. The other way is we have to think about where our ship's going to go in this harbor, and I will show you what I'm thinking. Can we stop up here, step up on this block, and get a good view? So right here, this is where the first one's going to go. So it's going to be a smaller ship. Of course, it's not quite a boat size. This is why I'm going to get confused between ships and boats a million times this episode. It's not quite a boat size. It's a ship. It's kind of, I'm thinking more of a kind of fishing trawler looking thing, but a small one. I don't know what size they're meant to be, but it's small. And then over here, we're going to do our monster big ship, kind of like the one that we saw on the other side of the world, which it's not really the other side of the world. It's just on the other side of this island. And that's what we're going to be doing, at least in terms of planning for the two ships that we've got here. So kicking things off with this, I've got a little bit of a base, and it does look quite small, but you're going to have to trust me. By the time this is finished, it's going to fill this area up quite a lot. Because as I say, I have tested out a few things in a creative world just to make sure this all works. Now, what my next stage is, I want to fill up this, which is actually, this is cyan terracotta. I want to fill up the cyan terracotta to create a nice base. So it's going to form the bottom bit of the ship. And then from there, we're going to start putting in the wood. And it's something that I've learned about recently in terms of doing these sorts of boats and stuff, or ships. Already, there's number one, is a lot of the time the wood actually gets a little bit too much for these things. And if you have a look at the big one we just looked at, there's a lot of cyan terracotta, and that was one of the best moves we've made. Can I make this jump? It was one of the best moves we made with that ship over there, that previous one. So I want to kind of take it on in this one and see what we can do with it. I think it'll actually prove to be a good idea for this area, just like what we learned on this last one, which in the last episode, by the way, if you guys didn't watch the last episode, that's where this guy came from and this guy here came from. The last one, we did a wooden boat over here, and you just couldn't tell what was the boat and what was the wall. And just in general, all the lines from the wood got a little bit too much. So getting these different colors in and different textures broke up the lines, broke up the colors, and of course you can now see the boat. And that's the same idea with this, but not quite as colorful. Remember my trick I said about the colors? I've got another trick, because I know this is one of the more common questions I get, because obviously I've got ships looking pretty good now. I've worked out how to do the ships quite good, but a lot of people tend to struggle with them, and necessarily they're pretty difficult to get right. But once you start getting a few things right, you start finding them a lot easier than, of course, what they were in the beginning. And one thing, first of all, if you can learn to jump from there and stay on your ship, that is a very big benefit. Of course, I cannot do that because, well, I'm me. But the big thing that I want to give, like the actual advice, is that when you do your ships like this, and just a few builds in general, they may be able to get a bit of an advantage if you can get may look a little bit better, is if you can get a little bit of a rim around them. And I'll show you what I mean, like a trim, really. You know what, I'm gonna have to jump off of that. All right, here we go. Made it. All right, perfect. So here is what I'm thinking. For instance, we go around here and we're going to put pillars around these places. As I say, I already know where these things are going to go. So I'm not super crazy and know everything about that stuff. I'm definitely planned out. I'm not able to actually build this thing as we go right now, but this is a plan. So if we can do something like this along the edge, and of course I'll just keep going on the rest of it a bit later, but this is just to hopefully help someone out that might be struggling with the shape of a build a little bit. What this can do is if you've got the build 90% of the way, maybe a little bit less of the way for the shape that you want, this sort of trim will eventually just make it a little bit more murky, and you won't notice what's going on quite as much as what is actually happening with the build. So for instance here, you remember what this looked like, this little bit of cyan clay over here? Look at the back now, just to give some context. Look at that. You can see it's already starting to get a little bit of a shape, and even though these things stick out one whole block, which is quite a lot, as soon as they start adding up, it starts looking better and better and better as we go. So that's not what I'm talking about like that. And oh man, if I could just place these things in the right spot the first time, that would be a lot easier. So something like that. And then we go out again and just make this trim along this way like that. We can then go again and just do something like this. And you see that? That starts making the ship look so much better. So really, this allows us to be able to make a few mistakes and fix them up, and it won't be too horrible for the build by having this edge between the bottom and the top. It does quite a few things, but that's just something maybe you guys could take if someone is having a bit of trouble with the build. Try this in the build, even if it's not a ship. It might come in quite handy just to break that sort of stuff up, and of course you can play around with it. It can do a lot of different things. So here's a quick look at what it should be looking like by the end of it. See how nice that trim looks? I really love that. It just works really well. And of course, now when we put the next layer on, it's going to work just as good. Now, one thing that I wanted to consider about this, and this is where I said I was in a creative world thinking quite a bit about this particular thing right over here, being the crane arm. And I was thinking that's going to be taking some barrels off the front of the ship as far as the load will be. But then I also didn't want this to be completely centered, because if it was completely centered, it would just look a little bit off. The other thing was also where the masts of the ship are going to be. And I even thought about something, and I'm curious if this is anyone else's thoughts, if they think that it could work as well. But I'm thinking, I was very tempted to put in a steam-powered ship. And I know it sounds kind of odd for this sort of era that we've made up here, but it's quite correct that it's a made-up era that we've made up here. It's a made-up existing world, and maybe a bit of steam could look pretty good. You know, specifically with the new little smoke plumes that come out there. Like, look at that. How good would that look coming out of a boat that was powered by coal or whatever it would be powered by? I think that would be rather cool. So the next stage here is what I thought was a pretty good idea. And I know I could definitely make a jump from here. So we'll do a cool jump onto the ship. And the next stage is we want to put the floor in. And for that, can I just jump like that? Perfect, nice and easy. And grab out my container of everything we need. So this is all the stuff we need for today. So that, I'll take some of those. I'll take those and them. I think that's all we need for now. Oh, those as well. Yeah, that's about all. Just those. So what we're going to do now is put in the floor of this thing. And for the floor, I was thinking we could do something like this. And where things get a bit crazy, like this stuff over here, we just put in the load. So we just go ahead and say, hey, I'm just going to put in some barrels, some there, maybe one facing up, and just create a bit of variation. And like this, it starts to make it a bit more hidden. And then for these front little bits, we just go and put in some of these to hide the floor. In fact, we'll put them at a different angle because that's the angle. So these were the little things that we can obviously just do to hide, and of course would surely work with this piece here. So we'll just go and put the rest of these in along this way. And I've got a bit of a change that I want to do for this floor, which is not just this stuff the whole way. I want to change to oak in the middle and then go back to spruce at the end. So I've put in these little pillars around the place, and that's going to make the boat look a little bit larger from the outside in terms of the height from that part over there. So I want to just put those in. In fact, we should probably do something which I never use. I always thought these were going to be way more useful than what they actually have ended up being, these bark blocks. They're useful, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like when I was thinking about them before they came into the game, I thought, man, I'm going to use them everywhere, and I haven't really used them in as many places as I'd like to. So maybe I should make a point of actually changing this sort of stuff up. So there, and for this, I actually want to put in some of these, just that it gets a nice little slant down to it. And here is where I get a little bit weird with my decisions of what I'm going to be putting down here. So first of all, we'll just make a little edge to this floor here so we can get this spruce, color change, oak, color change over here, and spruce again. So that's what we're going to do there. So for the oak, I've thought about this, and what I want to do is I want to get in some of these as well, and this should hopefully create a nice little pattern in the side here. So if we could, for instance, do something like, actually, we'll just be smart. We'll put in what I've just mentioned. So that, and that, and that, and we'll strip them like this. And then we could put in one of those, and of course we can leave this here as a support block. And that should, hopefully, if all is correct, look pretty good from the top there. So let's just put the rest of this in and just have a look at the color, make sure it's not too crazy. And then of course we can go ahead and move on a little bit more. Yeah, look at that, that's perfect. So now we'll have the mast coming up here. I want to have another mast. Maybe we can put one over there and one at the back here. We'll see how this goes. So that's basically what I've been thinking about for those. Now, while we put this in, because I have got a slight plan for how we're going to do the masts, but I've been thinking a bit more outside of this area because of course we've been in the docks or the harbor for a fairly long time, and I want to start moving away from them. And of course we've got things which we can put in. So for instance, say we're working out in maybe a village on the other side of this island, for instance. Not my plan, but for example, we could always come back to here to put in a ship or put in something else that I want to put in. You know, we can always come back and we don't have to necessarily just stick to the same area all the time because it can start to get a little bit stale. Even though I must admit, I'm kind of really excited about this area right now. So I don't want to necessarily move, but I understand for the sake of a video, it might be better off that I go around the places a little bit more than what we are. So my idea, here's my cool idea, which I was thinking about. And this has actually been what I've been thinking of since I think when I built this, is the next biome that we're going to be building, our next super custom biome. And I want that to be a spruce biome. And it's kind of simple, but a little bit more intricate than what you might think, because of course you just put spruce trees down, great. But then you can also go ahead and start putting in a whole bunch of other things on top of spruce trees. You know, you got the ground cover, you can make a completely different texture on the bottom. There's a lot of little things which you can do. Actually, speaking of a little thing, this angle, there we go, that does give us the angle. I never get these things right. So there and there. Good, perfect. All right, so if we can put this in, this will be a good base for us to go ahead and put in our pillar, which is going to be, or our mast, which is going to be a different color. We have to just think about this as long, okay, we actually miles off. I was going to say, this was something I was concerned about over here, but I did consider that and pushed the boat a little bit further back than I had planned. So this should not interact with what we've got going on with the masts, which is fantastic. So before I go away, before I forget what I was thinking, the spruce biome, I want it to be on that side there. So it's starting off, merging off, and eventually that spruce biome is going to become a snowy spruce biome on the other side of the island. But that's just my thought. And I think in the few episodes time, I want to have a bit of a biome, maybe like a biome building episode where we just laying down ideas. It doesn't even necessarily have to be something that we're going to be leaving there. It's just going to be the concept down on the ground and we can work with that from there. So here is what I'm thinking right here. A mast like that. We then need to get ourselves the other blocks, which I thought were going to be super useful. Those and these here. And because the mast will be very thick, if we just do one full block like this all the way up, it's going to be extremely wide. So I was thinking if we can go ahead and put in some of these. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna make a silly jump, but let's do it. Can I make it? Oh, I actually made it. Okay, there we go. So if we can just do something like that, of course we can use one of these edge blocks over here. There we go, that'll work. And then we can go ahead and move into a few smaller blocks. So can I jump up, 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 here, there, and maybe let's say for example's sake, this ends over here. We could do that there, put in another piece, and keep going up like that. I think that could be a good way for us to do this mast over here. All right, so we've got our first one in over here, and I think it's gonna work quite well. It's got a reasonable height to it on a little bit of an angle. The ones in front here, I wanna make this one to be a little bit larger, so it'll probably go up to, I mean, whatever the height that is, roughly ending there. And instead of having just one, we're gonna have two different sails on it. So we'll have one at the bottom, one at the top. And don't worry, this is not gonna be like these boats here without sails. This one's actually gonna have sails. And of course, that's where we're gonna have to get a little bit more creative with what we're doing. So that's for not so distant future me to worry about. But for now, I really just have to worry about these here. So, oh, dang it. Can we get back up there? So we go there, get on top here. Might have to do it like this. And we want to go up. I think maybe we'll do, I think I did 3 on this one. So we'll go 1 there, 2, 3. And I connected that up there. So instead, what I'll do with this one is I'll put this one out the front. So it connects like that. And we've got the blocks in our hand. This one's coming out this way. I'm just going to plan something out here. So if we do something like this, if we angle it inward so that this one is angled like this, that one is angled a little bit in, it'll create a good bit of variation on these sails so that they don't all look exactly the same when they're all next to each other. So we do this one here, and then we'll go up again. So we go 1, how much is that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, one of these. One of these. I think this actually probably is going to be a little bit too tall. So before we commit, we'll go back down to the bottom. Let's just jump off and see if this one's actually going to be a good height for us. So, right, nah, I think I need to go down from the bottom. Can't have a look from up here. Oh, it looks just a little bit too tall. I think I might bring that one down there, maybe just around there, because if we're still gonna have that piece jumping off the top there, so we've got like the flag spot, that's gonna be way too tall. But man, this area, I'm telling you now, I've been excited for this area. I think this is gonna start turning out great by the time we start adding these little things with detail, you know, the ships. I've got a few carts that we need to put in here as well. Random interruption, but I thought I turned these guys off. Like, I thought I would only find these in the actual pillager outposts. But if this is the case, that it only spawns one of these guys in and not an entire patrol, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm happy to deal with one of these guys every now and then. Really, my biggest problem with these pillagers was just that they were a bit too much of a nuisance. Not that they were dangerous or anything like that. I actually think I've been hit by a very small amount of their arrows. The main problem that I've had with these guys, prior to this, if you don't recall me explaining why I've turned these guys off, was just that they seem to have no way of stopping them, and it was just an existence in the world. Like, they had no point to be attacking you when you can't defend yourself from it. It just seemed really annoying just to have to deal with all the time. So that is why they are turned off right now, and I'm kind of very surprised to even see one of them there. So that is very, very odd. But either way, I'm all right with that. He can chill there. He wasn't even throwing anything at me, so I'm happy. What the heck? Yeah, this guy's he sounds pretty upset. Bad stomachache right there. So as long as he stays up there, I'm fine. Look at this setup right now. How good is that looking? Man, I'm happy with this. By the way, I'll zoom in a little bit. That's kind of hard to tell what's going on. But look at that. The sails are in. And remember what I said in the beginning of the episode saying, you know, keep this in mind. I'm going to come back to this. Right here, these sails. I think these sails are a little bit too boring. And I think we've got some good ideas and some good colors that we can put in to hopefully liven this place up a little bit. And that is the cyan. I've also got some other ideas because this is actually light gray wool on there right now. And I've brought along some string, and I've also brought along some concrete powder of the light gray variety, and that's gonna be pretty good for us because what that means we can do is we can add in the light gray concrete powder to make a textured, there we go, that's it, if I can just pronounce my words completely, a proper textured flag or sail over there, which I think will look rather cool, and they should be in here. Wait, no, they're in my inventory. There we go. Already one step ahead right there. So we're just going to pop some of these in, pop some of those in, and also some white wool at a very small amount, because we've learned from the last episode that too much like pure white color in this area will start making it look a little bit out of place, because of course we've gone for some more neutral colors. All right, I've just realized something when I was coming from here. I wanted to show you guys a really cool angle of the ship, but I've noticed there's another one there. And also apparently there, somewhere. They're just appearing, maybe I do, oh, there's another one. Okay, they just keep showing up everywhere. Hello? Anyone else? All right, so it appears either these are individually spawned guys. I'm a bit worried to go around the other side there. Or they are a complete raid of their own. But this is our ship here. Look at this thing. I am very, very pleased. You know, just before we go on any further, the cyan clay was, oh, sorry, I keep saying clay. The cyan wool, I thought was going to be quite an interesting one, and I thought it could either go the way it went or horribly wrong. And I think it went the way it went, apparently. That is so good. Man, I'm just so happy. This is one of those little things, like that how I mentioned in the last episode, how the little bits of detail make a big difference. Here's a bigger little piece of detail, and man, it's looking good. Also, these are meant to be kind of strung up, if I didn't mention that before. That's the reason why I've done them at this weird shape. They're not meant to be out. They're meant to be kind of rolled up, but not all the way. I don't know why I didn't do it just a plain log. I thought they would look kind of boring if we just kept them one block, so I rolled them up just a little bit like that. And I am so pleased. Also, we've got these ropes in, which is you can hardly see it here, but there's a bit of gray and light gray glass in there, creating a cool rope effect. And I chose them instead of the fences because the fence posts tend to look a bit weird on smaller things like this. They can work on a bigger ship, but they'll definitely be too small for this. But oh man, I'm so pleased. Like, look at this thing. I'm very, very happy. I want to get one more view just from the front here because I think this is going to be kind of like the establishing shot if we had to come into here just to see what this would look like. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. Look at that. Can I stop bobbing up and down as much as possible, please? Okay, I'm going to get myself a good spot. Now, in the next episode, I'm planning on doing a whole bunch of stuff at the back, so I think it's going to take another step above this. It's going to be awesome. I'm very, very excited. But for today, I think that will be all we need to do for this ship. If you guys have got any cool things we can add on here, of course, let me know about them. But thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.